How can our future Mars colonies be free of sexism and racism? This is from The Guardian. The white male European conquerors of the New World and 19th century American pioneers, shut up, Kitty, of manifest destiny still color the space age. So, is it a myth that will turn nice on Mars? Alright. I decided to address this article because space exploration is something dear to my heart. I've been a space buff since I was a little kid, and I want you to pay attention to several things during the reading of this article. Mainly the choice of words and semantic fields, and just blatant non sequiturs. I mean, even from the headlines, can our future Mars colonies be free of sexism and racism? Yes. If they were populated by people like me, for example. I'm not sexist or racist. Great. Thumbs up. And already it starts with bashing. And, I mean, can it be free of racism? The white male European conquerors. Yeah, right off the bat. Can it be free of racism? Not if you keep on talking about the race of people, including white folk. And is it a myth that will turn nice on Mars? That's not very nice. I have no better way to say that, but it's not very nice. And bet you, in the frontier, nice doesn't work. Okay, in the frontier you have to survive. No one asks you what your feelings are. No one has time to be offended. And that's right off the bat. That's 5 lines in big font. But we're getting there, folks. We'll get that dick right in. Just bite the pillow. We're going to Mars. Eventually. The quest to reach the dusty red planet is our version of manifest destiny. The 19th century philosophy that saw Americans spread across their continent with the thought and consideration of a chilly lover stealing the duvet in their sleep. The quest to reach Mars isn't our version of manifest destiny. The will to reach Mars is part of the human will not to die, and Mars is seen as the first stepping stone. But we will get to that, because this is just pure gold, ladies and gentlemen. It gets better. Trust me, it gets better. There were a lot of different versions of it, but the main themes, as summarized by Wikipedia, should sound quite familiar. The special virtues of the American people and their institutions. America's mission to redeem and remake the West in the image of agrarian America. An irresistible destiny to accomplish this essential duty. So besides the fact that the person who wrote this article, Martin Robbins, probably doesn't know the cultural background of the manifest destiny and how it has its roots in Puritanism, which was kind of wacky in some bits, but it's just very different. The Puritans are gone. No one thinks that way anymore. But you know what? The American institutions were virtuous. There was special virtue to their institutions. Read the Constitution. It is probably almost perfect. And the model of American agrarian society, except for slavery and basic human rights. Back then, slavery was still something that existed on a spectrum. You had slaves, you had indented servitude. Society was much more hierarchical, but liberty was inevitable in such a state eventually. So yes, it is better. Learn how to differentiate and evaluate things as having different qualities. Moving on! So 150 years later, Elon Musk of Tesla and SpaceX, check it, is arguably the most visible example of manifest destiny in the space age. Luke, it is your destiny. He's the de facto leader of the Western liberal technocratic consensus that harbors a long-term ambition to put humans on the red planet. Because he is a visionary? Steve Jobs was an asshole? No one holds that against him. He gave us the iPhone. Yes, am I talking slowly enough for the slow children? Everyone gets it? What is wrong with the quote-unquote liberal technocratic consensus? I mean, do you want things not to be better? I thought you like progress. I thought you like it being progressive. But not because they can, but because they feel we must. Yes, because population grows exponentially and we have a limited set of resources, and even though technology advances and allows us to utilize ever more resources, we always run the risk of hitting the wall, and it is better to have a new place to be in when the wall starts looming in the distance. Phil Plait, whoever that guy is, banged his hammer on this particular nail in a recent article for Slate, another reputable journalistic institution, in which he describes a tour of the SpaceX factory. And as you will see, boys and girls, the tour description actually echoes what I was saying earlier. A feeling I couldn't put my finger on before suddenly came into focus. The attitude of the people I saw wasn't just a general pride, as strong as it was, in doing something cool. And space is cool. It was that they were doing something important. And again, not just important in some vague, general way, and critical and quite specific in its endgame. Making human citizens of more than one world, a multi-planet species. Well, Phil, it's called a backup plan. Right, Katie? No response. She must have been triggered by the thought of backup plans, but it is important, okay? When you start running out of resources, or when you run the risk of running out of resources, it is important to start preparing yourself to getting more resources. And Mars is the closest and a better option than Venus. And then Martin Robbins states manifest destiny. Dude, I've already explained how this isn't manifest destiny, it's survival-based logic that is concentrated on a very long term. Just the fact that you're unable to see past the next 2 weeks or the past paycheck doesn't apply to all of us, right? Some of us can process longer terms of time. But moving on. But historically, this kind of attitude has come with two big problems. Oh, baby, how I love those weasel words. Give me some weasel words, come on. Firstly, destiny is rarely great for the people already at the destination. Notice the pun? He's so witty. When Africans moved north to colonize Europe, they obliterated the Neanderthals. Actually, they had sex with the Neanderthals, and we got the white man, the white devil, which you so hate. Europe became diverse. Yes, comrade? Tovarish, da? When Europeans seized the New World, its cultures were virtually extinguished. That is unfortunate. However, it is not a symptom of colonization, it is a symptom of humanity. Many cultures were extinguished in the past. Let's enumerate the number of cultures extinguished by Islam, shall we? No, we shan't. Because that's Islamophobic, people. It's not that Islam colonized every bit of land from West Africa to Malaysia. That couldn't be. Could it? Luckily, the only population on Mars, as we know, is a handful of workers, but no doubt we'll start a war anyway before dragging them into some form of slavery or oppression. It's just what we do. Alright, yep. This Martin Robbins guy must be on some special kind of drugs because robots are not population. I know that Curiosity sings happy birthday to itself, and that's completely idiotic, however tragic it may sound. I also teared up the first time I heard it, but it's fucking retarded, alright? Robots are not population. Neat technology though, but not population. Luckily, the only population on Mars is a handful of rovers, but no doubt we'll start a war anyway. Secondly, the causes of war. War, as defined by Clausewitz, by Karl von Clausewitz. He practically defines it as the expansion of policy. When policy fails to practically coerce the other side to do what you want, you use force. Now, the only reason you would find for such a thing is external pressures, like scarce resources. So in fact, going to Mars is one of the best ways to avoid a war. Humans always fought each other over two things: ideology and lack of resources. And one could state that the ideological stressors were also due to lack of resources, but I'm not going into it because I'm not sure I can represent this side of the argument well enough. But basically, let's assume we can always expand to new planets. There is always somewhere to go. Do you understand that? Do you understand the meaning of always having a place to go? That you can always leave, that you never lack resources, alright? So, if your neighbors are wacky and they're not going, you can always pack up and leave. If there's a lack of resources, you can always expand. Exploration would make war useless. It's not just what we do, it's what animals do when they lack resources. Right? It's not rocket science. Or, well, we're going to space, so maybe it is rocket science, but second, whose destiny is it anyways? Whose line is it anyways? Who gets to go? The people who are going. D.N. Lee wrote a fascinating deconstruction. Do you know who were the deconstructionists? Of this in Scientific American, where she makes a number of interesting points. Interesting. Should we view them through a telemascope? Not least, how little attention this question has been given in the rather white and male race to conquer Mars. Again with the sexism and racism. Why are you always so obsessed over people's sex and race? God damn! Listen. The black folk and the yellow folk and the red folk are welcome to go to Mars. They can build their own rockets. Nobody's stopping them. Right? Are you jealous for them, Phil? Right, Philip? You have a very... Sorry, Martin? You have a very white name, Martin. And you're a very white dude, Martin. Are you jealous for the colored folk? Or do you think they're not good enough to go by themselves? You think the white people are so good that they should be the ones to carry and care for the colored people? Have you listened to yourself? The first objection she raises is to the idea that we're stuck on Earth. Stuck? Why would we be stuck on Earth? Stuck implies left behind in a bad situation. I'm afraid our circumstances has gotten rather dire. Staying stuck with people like you on Earth is a bad situation, folks. I'm sorry. Okay? Staying stuck on Earth with ISIS and North Korea and China and Cuba and Venezuela where they ran out of toilet paper and Russia. Let's not forget Russia and the US going down the shits. It's a pretty bad situation. I want to leave. I'm off on the first boat. Get it? This is one bit I disagree with. As long as we're on one planet, however good it is, we're a single freak event away from joining the dinosaurs. Self-sufficient colonies elsewhere make for a good insurance policy. Well, yeah, but I'm thinking about myself here. Fuck insurance policy. Fuck species consciousness. I want to leave. I don't want to live on this planet anymore. I want to go away from people like you. Seriously. Okay, prepare thyself, weary traveler, because her next point is critical though. I'm nagged. Kitty, she is nagged. Pay attention. Pay attention, Kitty. I'm nagged by frames or narratives that are presented as universally attractive and necessary and heroic, where the protagonists seem to mostly reflect Hollywood action movie casts and plots. Eye rolls. I began to question, first in my mind, then out loud, whose version of humanity is being targeted for saving. I am starting to get the impression that these folks are just lazy. Right? Here you have a guy who is a self-made man and practically has a dream. He has a dream and he acts on it. Right? But these people want other people to do the work for them. They want to be saved by other people. So besides the fact that it is vaguely Christianic and fatalistic in the worst possible way, Kitty, stop it. Again with the weasel words and feelings, all those feelings. I'm sorry, but I must be a Spurglord or something because I don't get it. I just don't get it. Why are you nagged? Who's nagging you? I'm nagged by you. You're nagging me. Leave me alone. I want to go. By frames or narrative that present as universally attractive. If they're not attractive to you, then what do you have to do with this? Seriously. If it's unattractive to you, then just don't participate. Why do you have to come into somewhere where you're irrelevant and start pestering people and telling them, I'm nagged, I don't like it. Maybe for us, for some people, men of the West, who grew up on the West's canon, I know you hate that, the Western canon, who grew up on everything from the Iliad and the Odyssey to Tolkien. Right? Maybe it's meaningful. Maybe we find some inspiration in Jason and the Argonauts. Maybe we find some inspiration in exploration, in daring, in achievement. Maybe. Just maybe. You know, the fusion of Germanic and Roman and Greek and Jewish ideals into one has congealed into something that makes these concepts appealing to us. You don't have to join. It's like in comics. Alright, you don't like them, don't read them. Okay, and if you want to go, make your own version. Build your own rocket. Or is it that you can't build a rocket because you majored in the humanities? To paraphrase Douglas Adams, space is white. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly white it is. Stop being so racist. The fact that you don't know any science fiction authors who are non-white is not my problem. It's not my responsibility to educate you. It's also very male and European. Well, what can we do that it was the male Europeans who got to space? You all slow kids, and I'm not European, by the way. I'm not American either, so got a few high horse, but everyone's welcome to join. Everyone's welcome to join the white Europeans. Women in space colony fiction have generally been presented as sexy walking vaginas, whose main purpose is to provide the male astronauts with a place to dock their penis at night. Ew, sounds kind of racy. This being necessary in order to ensure the survival of the species. That's why we're going. Fucking triggered. Seriously. We're going to space to ensure the survival of the species. Okay? This is probably going to be very hard, right? It's going to be labor intensive. Things you hate. Okay, so probably division of labor between the strong and the less strong would probably see some women concentrating on child rearing. Children would probably be raised in small communities by someone whose social function is known as a school marm. Heard of it? Practically like they had in America, in agrarian America, where in one village kids of all ages would sit in one school with one teacher, freeing everyone else to work and break their backs. Also, I know you don't understand this, but people in frontier areas bring more children. Try to wrap your head around it. It's practically the deal of I take care of you, you're a pair of working hands. If you think that attitude doesn't exist in the real world, it's worth recalling the comments of Professor Anatoly Grigoriev, a doctor and key figure in the Russian space program. Women are fragile and delicate creatures. That is why men should lead the way to distant planets and carry a woman there in their strong hands. You know, it is vaguely reminiscent of how feminism portrays things. Women are capable, but we should lower the bar for them and just let them join the fields that men have already forged. He is practically saying men should forge ahead and sacrifice their lives so women could step over their dead bodies into space and comfort. That is all that he is saying. And he was not Western. I'm sorry, Russian civilization is very, very, very different from Western civilization. They have completely different sets of values. Right? You can't equate apples to oranges. You're demonstrating your own ignorance. Educate yourself, shitlord. No wonder Lee says, I see only a very narrow invitation to this lifeboat. Don't think of it as a lifeboat. Think of it as an ark, alright? People build arks for themselves and their loved ones. They're not extending invitations because it's not about you. It's about them and about the things that they care for. Alright, I know you can't accept the fact that other people have agency and they act independently without considering you and consulting with you first. But try to accept it. Try to accept that other people have will, they have ambitions as well. Of course, there are narrow invitations. There are 0 invitations. The lifeboat isn't for invitees, but you probably don't understand it, do you? The problem with Lee's argument, only one, is that she's fighting against the possibly the most pernicious space myth in existence. A myth far worse than moon landing conspiracy theories. It's a myth almost universally believed that sits at the core of liberal technocratic thought, again with that, and has been embedded in practically every other work of speculative fiction for the last half century. You can sum it up like this. When we go into space, we will all magically become nice. Actually, that's not the myth. You probably didn't study any field in the natural sciences, but the common joke there is when the TA waves his hands and says, "Oh, it's trivial," or "And I just skipped a few stages of the proof. We go to space, ... we become nice." You know what happens in between those two stages? all the not nice people die. Okay? They get killed. Some of them get killed because other people killed them. You know, space is a very deadly place. You only have to have one leaky spacesuit and you die. Okay? You hurt other people? Whoosh, out the airlock. You can't work with people? How will you breed in 2, 3, 5 generations? People not being nice, not being cooperative would probably be bred out of the population. Going to space, going to extreme conditions would make us better people because it would weed out the idiots, the lowlives, and the fucknuts. Like you. I'm sorry, but it's like an armed society is a polite society. Alright? It's a quote from Heinlein. Right? Another big space buff. An armed society is a polite society. Manners are good when one may have to back up his acts with his life. Okay? And trust that people in space will be armed and dangerous and capable. It's no place for slackers, lazy bums. Not space. And when Mars gets too comfortable and people like you start moving in, I'm getting the fuck out. I'm moving to a freaking asteroid as far as possible from people like you, from the people who pretend to be nice. Being nice isn't a prerequisite for anything. We see this in coverage of the space program with its endless propaganda about cooperation between nations and promotion of the idea that clever people in tough situations produce the best humanity has to offer. It's rampant in fiction, where shows like Star Trek assume that 3 centuries of civil rights progress will inevitably turn us all into morally centered, middle-class rationalists. It's only one show. Star Trek isn't the be-all, end-all of science fiction in space. If you want to see the nitty-gritty of space, watch Alien. It has a good female role model in it. Try watching Alien. Or if you want to see people going apeshit in space, watch Pandorum. Or Firefly. In Firefly, people are not nice in space. People are terrified of each other in space. When people meet in space, they do it with drawn guns because they don't trust each other. Star Trek was only one version of space. Okay? And it's also not true today that you have endless propaganda about cooperation between all nations. SpaceX is a business. And it gets paid to do what it does. Governments sign contracts with SpaceX. Sometimes governments work together, but the governments that work together on space explorations are only white, European, and American and Canadian. New Zealand, Australia. It's practically the Anglosphere and adjunants. There's no vast cooperations between nations. It's one group that is obsessed with something, and you're feeling uncomfortable about it. God knows why. And it's there, unspoken and unchallenged, at the heart of our current aspirations for space. There's no room for discussion about social justice or equality when it comes to planning our future Mars colonies, because we all just assume decent educated scientists and engineers, right kind of people, won't have any problem with that sort of thing. You know why there won't be any problem with social justice in space? Because people would be too busy to oppress anyone. They won't be all day on the Twitter. Have you ever been part of a professional working environment? Have you ever worked your ass off 12 hours a day on a project that your life depended on? I bet you freaking haven't. Then move along then. You have no idea what you're talking about, darling. Thanks, Milo. Except every available single scrap of historical experience tells us that this is an incredibly naive and dangerous assumption to make. Colonies and outposts are portrayed as lights in the darkness, hotspots of progress, ingenuity, and adventure. That may be true to some extent, yes. But there have also been places of crime, vigilante justice, tyrants, rape, pillaging, abuse, and war. It's true that when things get hard, we can see the best in people, but oftentimes we see the worst too. Citation needed. In fact, we've already seen this in a Mars mission simulation that took place in 1999 and ended in chaos, as summarized by Helen Lewis in The New Statesman. I'm sorry for being a bigot, but the first word in this paragraph is the Russian. The Russian captain forcibly kissed the only female crew member, a 32-year-old Canadian health specialist called Judith Lapierre. We should try kissing. I haven't been smoking for 6 months, he reportedly told her. Then we can kiss after the mission and compare it. Let's do the experiment now. Two of her Russian crewmates then had a fight so violent that it left blood splattered on the walls, prompting another member of the team, a Japanese man, to quit. Lapierre stayed only after the astronauts were allowed to put locks on their bedroom doors. If this would happen in space, the Russian captain would have been out of the airlock in 5 minutes. This is why in space everyone will be nice. You won't have people like that. They would be confined to their rooms, relieved of their duties until further notice. Okay? And again, I'm sorry, don't take Russian people on your space flights. Okay, different cultures. Alright, maybe the cooperation between nations is a myth. Alright, maybe we don't need to go. Maybe to each his own. How about that, fucknuts? The first woman to be raped in space has probably already been born. Hey, I invented space rape. Like, the term. That's how you'll know that humanity has gone to space. The first space rape. That's like the defining characteristic of humanity. Okay, we'll find the opportunity to be shit to each other. However, that is when vigilante justice comes into the picture, and off you go out of the airlock. Thank you for participating in the plan. Your rations will be added to the community pool. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. But frontier justice is a harsh kind of justice. And if that last sentence makes you howl with protest or insist that such a thing just wouldn't happen, then stop a second and ask yourself why. Oh, it would happen. I'm dying for it to happen. And I'm dying for the results of it to happen. I'm waiting for the fallout, okay, and I'm waiting for the reaction on Earth. Because feminists wouldn't know what to do with themselves. The rapists will be killed like they would like to see, but they would be able to say, I told you so, and they would blame toxic masculinity. No one would be able to just point out to exactly what happened. So my guest is flabbered. I'm a fan of SpaceX. It doesn't show. After some initial skepticism, it does show. I think it's usually better to do something, however imperfect, than nothing, and I admire people like Elon Musk who take on hard challenges and make progress in spite of naysayers. You are the naysayer in spite of whom Elon Musk does what he does. Okay? It probably has something to do with the fact that you vilify money. I can guarantee it. I can guarantee that you see money as taken and not earned. Let's just assume I'm that kind of shitlord. We're almost there, folks. I think Lee is absolutely right, though, when she says, when we look around and see a homogeneous group of individuals discussing these issues that command insane budgets, we should pause. Why aren't other voices and perspectives at the table? Because they're irrelevant. How much is this conversation being controlled by capitalist and political interests of the few people at the table? I told you. They fucking hate money. Okay? They can't stand other people having anything. And there's a reason for it. Because these are the people who are so incapable they can't even get participation ribbons. The budgets invested in it are either governmental budgets, in which case I agree with you. Your money, I don't want your money spent on space exploration. I'm willing to have my money spent on, but not yours. Deal? Deal. Second, if it's private money, if it's by filthy capitalists, then it's their money, okay? They can put it in a pile and burn it for all I care. They can do with it what they want. I won't judge them. I might even applaud them. Okay? And the reason you don't have a seat at the table is because you're irrelevant, and you're trying forcibly to make yourself relevant. It's early days, but if we really want to create a progressive... I knew it was coming! Called it first. Progressive. New world order, then issues like these should be at the heart of our efforts from the very start. No. I hope Musk and his peers open up. No. That discussion. No. Sooner. No. Rather than later. Yes. And I hope that people like Lee. No. They can't take part in it. The last thing we need is wake up tears and find out that a bunch of Gamergate knobheads are running Mars. That's it, Martin. Isn't it? It is all derived from your fear of having people which you perceive as better than you running things. You can't stand the fact that you are not running everything. Because if not the Gamergate people, knobheads are running Mars, then who will? Well, the people that you have portrayed as antipodal to them. Yourself and Lee. I have said, you're irrelevant, okay? What is your vision for the future? Everyone gets a place at the table. And I shall quote Bill Will here. We like fast cars, loud guns, and beautiful women. We want all of them in excess. Your vision for the future is a bunch of miserable lowlives living in thatched huts, plying lies of each other, eating their sustainable, organic, non-GMO algae cakes in a bake sale to raise money to save the Guatemalan water snake. This is not the future I want. I want another kind of future. Thank you all for listening. This has been Veer Media.